everybody. Today we're going over the trigger in this rifle here from Timney. Now, those of you guys that follow the forums know that Timney released a trigger earlier this year for the Tavor rifles, and it had to be recalled due to light primer strikes. Now, I got one of the very first ones released, and to their credit, I had hundreds of rounds, all different types, steel cased, metal surplus, all kinds. Not a single light primer strike, but I still sent it back in anyway because I wanted to make sure I had the current product, the Gen 2, if you will, that's currently being sold and has remedied that problem that some folks were having. So that's what we have here in the rifle. What I'm going to do is keep putting some rounds on steel, at least hopefully. And after that, get into what I think of it, some of the specs of it, the features of it. But without question, one of the big problems with the Tavor rifle was the trigger. Big knock on it. Heavy, long, had a lot of linkage in it, like all bullpups do. Timney's done a lot to reduce that, and we're going to get into that coming up next. Makes bringing that steel pretty damn easy. Before throwing it in the gun, we'll just go over some of the actual specs on the trigger pack itself. You can see here it has excellent machining all the way around, no machining marks, and it is made from 6061 T6 aluminum. And one thing I want to point out here is the bevels in these pinholes here, the trigger pinholes, the beveling that you see on there. In my first one, it didn't have that, so maybe that's something that is a way that you can recognize, if you will, the current version, but this one has it, the other one didn't. Now, the hammer here is a nickel Teflon coated hammer. You guys know I'm a pretty big fan of that. It's nice and slick, and the size of the hammer here is also something to take note of. It's very large when compared to the factory one. Here is our factory trigger pack, and you can see the difference there. Now, that heavier hammer, more mass going forward, allows them to use a lighter spring on the hammer spring. Now, take a look there at the hammer springs, and you'll see a very large difference in that as well. Installation of the trigger pack is extremely easy. As you see here, we have these two pins. What we want to do here is push those out. So you take either a punch, or you can actually just use a bullet and push those out, push them through, pull them down. We'll do the same here with the one up front. I'm just going to pull down on that there, and it should fall right out. There you go. The factory one comes out. Timney goes in. Hopefully, if I can do this all on camera here anyway. It's not too hard. I should be able to accomplish it. Let that go back in there. Line our pinholes up. You can see they're not lined up. It's easier to do if you're not on camera, as always is the case. There we go. And even on camera, you can see there, didn't take too long. With the Timney trigger installed, let's see what kind of actual pull weight we're getting there. Put it on the trigger pull gauge. And you'll see there, pretty consistently, I get just over 4 pounds, at least on my gauge. So obviously it's one of their gauges, so we're going to have to go with that as the official total. But no, in all seriousness, generally it's going to break right between 4 to 4.5 pounds on this gauge. With the original one I had, it was breaking right between like 3 3/3, excuse me, to 4 1/4. So a little bit heavier with the Gen 2 model, but still a lot better than what you're going to get with the factory one, and even better than what a lot of folks were doing, which was taking out that one spring, which we'll show you later. We'll test that out. That was the original Tavor trigger job, if you will. We'll show you that in a comparison here in a second, but let's talk about the factory, the feel of this one, I should say, with the Timney over the factory first. So here's the Timney again. We'll talk about it here. There's obviously that little bit of uptake that you're going to have there. It's inherent in the Tavor design. At this point, you hit sort of a wall, and then extremely short, crisp break. And the reset, nice, positive, short travel. And it's just, I mean, it's light years better than what you were going to get with the factory, and even better than what we're going to show you next, where they just took the spring out, which was, again, the original Tavor trigger job. But, I mean, that's just, it's light years better, guys, I assure you. The factory trigger is installed in there, and we'll go ahead and throw it on the gauge here and see what it does even with that spring removed. And there you go, it's breaking right at just over 8 pounds, even with that spring removed. And just to show you exactly what it's going to actually feel like, I'll charge it up there. And again, even with that spring removed, kind of have nice springy, or not nice, I should say, very springy uptake. There's no real definitive break. And the reset is longer than what you see there with the Timney. Without question, the trigger is a huge upgrade to this gun. Obviously, it's got excellent specs, and it comes to market, I believe, right at $350, which is certainly kind of expensive. There's no getting around it, but the Tavor is an expensive rifle, as we all know, so the trigger is the big, weak part of the rifle, like I talked about earlier, and this one absolutely improves it. If it came out with this trigger from the factory, folks would be raving about it and saying it's the best bullpup trigger ever, which, in my opinion, in this combination, it's the best one I've ever shot, that's for sure, without question, and honestly, nothing's even close. So it does a great, great job. It's hard to convey triggers across that camera, but I'm telling you, it's a good one. And in terms of the problems they had with the first version of it, hey, I mean, a lot of companies have problems. Look at, like, Smith & Wesson's had problems. They've had recalls. Glock's had recalls. And the mark of a good company, in my opinion, is that they fix that and replace it. And Timney is. They've replaced the triggers for folks that have had the problems. So that's really all you can ask for, is that they improve, listen to what's going on out there, and make the products better. So that's what they did. Can't complain about that. But the only downside I can think of to this trigger is that it's not compatible with suppressors. So for those of you guys that are running a lot of suppressed, or your Tavor suppressed a lot, I should say, keep that in mind. But I haven't tried that out yet. I do have a couple suppressors coming in, guys, so I will test it out in the future. But right now, that is what they say on their website, so I guess that's the downside of it, if there is one. But if you guys have any questions about this trigger or anything else I talk about here on the channel, you can always post below in the comments section. You can also post over at my Facebook page as always. But thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for subscribing, and I hope to see you in the next video.